So y'all can space out if you need to. We can social distance without it being a problem. We're glad to see you. It's our 2020 Graduate Sunday where we're going to honor. We have 2 graduating seniors this year, and so we're going to take a few minutes and kind of celebrate with them and honor their accomplishments and celebrate with Mom and Dad too, who are probably as relieved as the kids are to be celebrating. And so at this time we have Ashlyn and Waters and Joshua Summers graduating. And so here's some pictures to completely humiliate Ashlyn Waters. Because he's a professional. We already prayed. We were talking about it a minute ago. Things just don't work the way they're supposed to all the time. Ran through it 3 times this morning, and it worked fine. It's supposed to start as soon as it gets there. Here's Josh. I have no idea what's happening now. It probably does. She's back. All righty. Ashlyn was cute. She's grown up now. I'm trying to summarize the graduation picture. She's done a lot of stuff, and hopefully we'll get it to where we can see it, and they'll bring up in just a minute. And then we got Joshua also. Supposed to each have their own video. Well, that's coming. That's coming. Ashlyn and Joshua, why don't y'all come up here while we're trying to figure this out, and maybe we'll put it in the back during lunch. Come on up here. You might as well come up here. So we have Ashlyn Elizabeth Waters, who is the 18-year-old daughter of Wesley and Amanda Waters. During high school, she was a member of the Beta Club, FCA, Seatbelt Ambassadors, National Honor Society, Junior Board of Directors, the Leo Club, the Cheerleading Squad. She is an honors graduate of excellence at Tattnall County High School. Ashlyn's been accepted to Georgia Southern University. In the fall, she plans to pursue a degree in marketing. And then we have Joshua, who is the son of Jason and Trina Summers. He loves guitar, enjoys playing basketball, hanging around with friends. Josh participated in the Evans County 4-H for 9 years, won first place in the district for his mechanical engineering project, placed in top 3 in performing arts. He's been a part of David Hodges' aeronautical engineering class for several years. Along with his class, they designed an airplane from scratch and have begun construction. We are not allowing him to fly said airplane, but they are putting it together. Josh is employed as an electrician and HVAC tech in training at Bland's Heating and Air. He's dual enrolled at Toccoa Falls College and maintained a 4.0 average. He plans to attend Ogeechee Technical College in the fall to earn his HVAC and electrical certifications and later earn a degree and serve in ministry. And so that's our 2 graduates. Can y'all give them a hand and their... We're still working on it in the back. We always give Bibles to our graduates, and so Ashlyn, this is a big Bible. It's pretty, but it's big. But there you go. Congratulations. We're proud of you. And Josh, the same for you. Oh, that's not good. There you go. We're proud of you too. I love you, buddy. Let's give him a hand one more time. And as we do that, are we good? We're close. I don't want to start telling jokes. It just goes bad when I do this. It's the only way I know to stall. Yeah, that's it. Anybody? You want to thank all the little people? Your parents, without them, you wouldn't be here today. All those things. All right. While they're working on it in the back, I've asked, we would normally put them on the floor here and gather around them as a church and pray over them just because of current climate we're in. We're going to forgo that. But I would ask if Tim Dubberly, who is Ashlyn's grandpa, would come up, and if Brother Everett would come here. They're going to pray the Lord would just lead our graduates, bless them as they start the next chapter of their lives, and ask him just to have his hand on their lives. Come on, guys. Tim, you want to pray first?
Father, Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to be able to present these
right. How quick are we going to get the other one? Yeah, none of those look interesting right now. Probably could just leave those the way they are. All right, they'll work on it. We're gonna move along, I think, until I get a signal in the back. Jordan, come get us out of this. Let's sing something.
All right, stand with me once again. Turn to hymn number 56. Hymn number 56. We've already sung When the Roll is Caught Up Yonder. We're going to gather at the river when we all get to heaven. Hymn number 56. Let's all sing together. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. While we walk the pilgrim pathway, clouds will overspread the sky. But when traveling days are over, not a shadow, not a sign. And when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glance of Him in glory will the toils of life repay. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. On the last verse, onward to the prize before us, soon His beauty will behold. Soon the pearly gates will open, we shall tread the streets of gold. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory.
You can be seated.
Job, lying helpless, suffering loss, but not hopeless. I am David crying, mercy, Lord, on me. I am Elijah in a cave, dreading the light of day. I am Daniel, humbly bow faithfully. I am Paul in a prison, lifting praise to heaven. I am John, cast out but not down. I am Moses seeking shelter in the cleft of the rock. Here I am, Lord, hide me again. I finally made it to the cleft of the rock. will hide me again and again. Now I'm safe from the stranger, safe from the danger that would seek to do me great harm. And I am wrapped up and warm in the love of my Master. I'm resting while I lean on His arms. So I'll stay a little longer until I am stronger, when all of my healing is done. The ravens will feed me, and His hand will keep me and hide me till I can go. I finally made it to the cleft of the rock. I'm glad, for I could no longer stand. Many times I will struggle to reach that old rock, but He will hide me again and again. He hideth my soul in the cleft of the rock that shadows a dry, thirsty land. He hideth my life in the depths of His love, and He will hide me again and again.
All right, thank you, Brother Jason. He hideth me in the cleft of the rocks. All right, hymn number 441. I'll let you remain seated this time since you've been up and down a lot. Hymn number 441. This will be our last congregational hymn before the message this morning. Great is Thy faithfulness. Hymn number 441. Great is Thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with Thee. Thou changest not, Thy compassions, they fail not. As Thou hast been, Thou forever wilt be. Great is Thy faithfulness, great is Thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, Thy hand hath provided. Great is Thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to Thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is Thy faithfulness, Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings of mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. By morning new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Amen.
I've been thinking about time and where does it go? How can I stop my life from passing me by? I don't know. I've been thinking about family, now it's going so fast. Will I wake up one morning just wishing that I could go back? I've been thinking about lately, maybe I can make a change and let it change me. So with all of my heart, this is my prayer. Singing, oh Lord, keep me in the moment. Help me live with my eyes wide open, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Singing, oh Lord, show me what matters, throw away what I'm chasing after, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Keep me in the moment. Oh, keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. When I wake up in the morning, Lord, touch my heart. Don't let me stray, I just wanna stay where you are. All I got is one shot, one try, one go around in this beautiful life. Nothing is wasted when everything's placed in your hands. Singing, oh Lord, keep me in the moment. Help me live with my eyes wide open, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Singing, oh Lord, show me what matters, throw away what I'm chasing after, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment. Oh, keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. I've been thinking about heaven and the promise you hold. So it's all eyes on you until the day you call me home. Singing, oh Lord, keep me in the moment. Help me live with my eyes wide open, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. I don't wanna miss, I don't wanna miss. Singing, oh Lord, show me what matters, throw away what I'm chasing after, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Yeah. Keep me in the moment. Oh, keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. Keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment. Oh, keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment. Keep me in the moment, 'cause I don't wanna miss what you have for me. What you have for me.
Okay, the technology problems are officially over for the morning. I do need to explain one particular picture in that slideshow. That was a picture of Joshua in the washing machine. I did not realize it when I said, Josh, go move the clothes from the washer into the dryer, that it was such an involved process. I actually climb into the washer, throw the clothes onto the dryer, get out, and then move them in. And I just happened to, I was like, what's taking him so long? And happened to come in and find him inside the washing machine. So he can do laundry if he has to. I'm going to speak just for a few minutes to Josh and Josh and Ashlyn specifically. You all are welcome to listen in, and I want to give you 3 things you need to do to find your destination, to get your destination without a road map. And I know the word map is, some of y'all are going, what's a road map? It's what we had before GPS. See, kids under 20, there was a time when you go on a trip, you had a atlas in the car. It had all 50 states, and you had to actually look at a physical piece of paper. So a map. Or we could say how to get to your destination without a GPS. I have found out, you all know that I despise Apple phones, iPhones. I hate them. And we have, every time my wife and I try to use her navigation on her iPhone, it gets us lost every single time. I don't know if it's because Siri is terrible or if she knows I don't like her and therefore sends me someplace I don't want to be. We come back from her brother's house in Alabama a few weeks ago, and we ended up in Chattanooga. Had no idea, never been that way before, but that's where we went. And so as you go through life, Josh and Ashlyn, I'm not going to make you come up and sit separately because that's just embarrassing. But the next several years especially are going to be very important to where you're going to end up. The decisions that you make between now and the time you turn 25 or so are really going to affect everything from that point on in your life. From the person you choose as a spouse, to the college and the degree that you're going to get, to the field of work you go in afterwards, all of your life really going to be affected by the next few years. And I'm not saying that you make or break your life, but I am saying you will turn the course of your life in the next few years with the decisions that you make. And so I think it's important that we as children of God, and I think both of you have made profession of faith, members of the church, you want God to do what He wants with your lives. I think there's some things we can find that in the Word of God will help you as you try to make those decisions, because you're the one that's going to make them. Mom and Dad can't make them for you. If we could, believe me, we would. But you're going to make those decisions, and there's some things to keep in mind how to get where you're going. And I'm praying for you all that where you're going is the perfect center of God's will for your lives as adults. That's my prayer. If that's that both of you become millionaires, especially Josh, that's great. Mom and Dad want to retire at some point. That would be wonderful. But if God wants you in a place of ministry, whether it's on a mission field or in a church or whatever it is, then that's where you need to be headed. That's the destination that you're trying to reach. And so there's some things you have to do to get there. And we're going to pick up in the book of Joshua, chapter number 3 this morning. Joshua chapter 3. It's not a coincidence. I've found myself in Joshua. We named our firstborn son after the character that bears the title of this book. And we pick up in Joshua 3. Now, you understand the history of the nation of Israel up to this point. They spent 400 years in Egypt. After they get out of Egypt for 400 years, then they spend 40 years walking around in the desert, seemingly to them going nowhere. And yet in the 40 years that they found themselves in the wilderness, God was preparing His people for their promised land. There is no way from a human standpoint that slave nation of Israel, 400 years as slaves, would be ready to leave Egypt, walk across the Red Sea, go across the Jordan River, and begin to conquer Canaan, starting with Jericho and Ai, and the list goes on. There's no way they'd be ready. And so for 40 years, even though they had a lack of faith that caused them to wander here, God is able to use those 40 years to mold a people, to put the right leadership into place to get them ready. We get to chapter 1 of Joshua, and it really begins, the book begins on a very sad note because it says this: Moses, my servant, is dead. That's kind of a rough way to start a book. But you know what comes with that phrase, Moses, my servant, is dead? Listen, it comes with the possibility of something different. Because of Moses' disobedience, you remember there was a time when they're in the wilderness and they're thirsty and they're dying for some water, both literally and figuratively. And this is a nation of some probably 5 million people, and just a little water is not enough for them. And God says, Moses, go strike the rock and there'll be coming forth. And you remember out of Moses, because he was angry, He struck the rock multiple times. And because of his disobedience, because of his attitude of rebellion, God said, you, like everyone else 40 years and down or over, are going to die in the wilderness. And so when Joshua begins with Moses, my servant, is dead, how sad it is. But at the same time, there's a transition that's taking place here. And when you read the book of Joshua and the book of Exodus especially, and you find that Moses is in leadership, Moses is a perfect picture of the Old Testament law. It's not a coincidence that Moses is the one that God gave the Ten Commandments to. And the law will show you that you're not where you should be. That's what the law does. In fact, the book of Galatians says, wherefore the law is our schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. That is, the law shows me that I have fallen short of the glory of God. Romans chapter 3:10 and 3:23. And so Moses, as a picture of the law, has led the children out of Egypt. They know they can't stay there, but the law or Moses isn't sufficient to get them into the promised land. That's where Joshua comes on the scene. Joshua is the same Hebrew word, Jesus. You pronounce it Yeshua. And where Moses, the law, falls short, where it says, okay, you know you're wrong to be in Egypt, you got to get out of here, but I can't take you to the promised land. Grace steps on the scene, says, follow me. And that's where we find in Joshua chapter number 3, grace has stepped on the scene in the person of Joshua, a type of Christ. In Joshua chapter 3, verse number 1, Joshua rose early in the morning. That's obviously not talking about our Joshua at home. And they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests of the Levites bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that you may know the way by which you must go. Look what he says there, because you have not passed this way heretofore. Josh and Ashlyn, I can assure you that no matter where you've gone in life, the places that you're going in the next few years, you've never been there before. You've never been there before. And you're going to have to rely on something other than your own knowledge, your own wisdom to get you through and get you past where you are. You're going to have to do what they did, and that is follow the Lord, because you've never been here before. You don't know where to go. If you've traveled much, you get into a new place, a new city. It used to be, not anymore. Now you just tell it where you want to go and it speaks directions. But it was hard if you had to use a map in a new city. I moved when I got out of high school and went to go to ministry school in Cincinnati, and moved away and got a job, and we built office cubicles. That was the company that I did, and I was the youngest guy on the work crew, and so they thought it was my job then to have to drive the truck. And this wasn't just a small truck. I'm an 18-year-old, been in rural Indiana most of my teenage years. I've driven a lot, but not in big town like Cincinnati, and they stuck me in a 26-foot box truck. And behind me was a 53-foot semi-truck with the rest of our materials to go to this job site. We didn't have GPS, and so we had it mapped out. Me and the 3 guys in the cab of the truck, and they're messing around, not paying attention. I get off the interstate going into downtown to one of the high-rise office buildings where we're going to build these cubicles. 150 cubicles are going to be built in there in a week when we leave. And I get off and get down and make a turn with a 26-foot box truck with a 53-foot trailer truck behind me, and I turn onto a dead-end road. Right in front of me, it's a dead end. There's nothing but a wall there. So we get on our boop, boop, the Nextels you had back in the day, right? I said, hey, I might have a problem. And the foreman said, yeah, what's your problem? I said, well, I'm in front of a dead end, and the semi-truck is behind me, and I can't back up. There's stuff on both sides, and I don't know what to do. He said, well, what street are you on? And having lived in Cincinnati for about a month, I said, I'm on the corner of this street and this street. And the guy said immediately, oh my, don't stop that truck. They will rob you blind in that neighborhood. Ended up in the worst neighborhood in a dead end in Cincinnati, Over the Rhine. That was the name of the little neighborhood I know now. I got stuck there. And the thing is, I had no idea where I was going. And Josh and Ashlyn, the next steps you're taking, you don't know. You just never been there. You can try, but if we're going to do this right, if you're going to be successful, the next steps especially, it's going to be very important that you put the God of heaven in front of you, that you follow His direction, that you don't take a step and then say, hey, is this where I'm supposed to go? Because you may end up with a big truck in a dead end in a bad neighborhood. You need to make sure that He's in front of you. And so he says you need to watch the Ark of the Covenant and the priest, because you haven't passed this way before. You don't know where you're going. You don't know the landmarks. You don't know the dangers. You don't know where you're going. So follow me. And that's good advice. He continues on in verse number 6, and Joshua spake unto the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day I'll begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I'll be with thee. And thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When ye are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, Come hither and hear the words of the Lord your God. And he repeated back the directions that God had given him. I'm going to give you 3 things that you need to do if you're going to get to your destination this morning without a roadmap. Number 1, you need to first of all let God guide you with His presence in your life. Look what He says in verse number 3 and 4. We just said a minute ago. He said, Follow me. Follow me. It is a comfort for you guys. It's a comfort me as a 40-year-old, but it's a comfort for a 17, 18, 19-year-old to know that when God says, I've got a plan for your life, He didn't just say, hey, good luck finding it. Good luck. Just go this general direction and you'll find it. That's not what He's done. He did it for the nation of Israel in the book of Joshua. He'll do it for you. When He says, I've got a plan for your life, He says, just follow me and we'll get there together. We'll get there together. I'm not expecting you to try to figure out the route all by yourself, but you've got to let me lead you. And there are going to be times, ask your mom and your dad and your grandparents, your aunts and your uncles, there are going to be times when there will be an easier path in life than to do what God wants you to do. I promise. I promise. There'll be easier roads with less obstacles, less persecution, less difficulty if you just go down this road. But if God is leading you down a different road, you need to make sure that you're going to be obedient to Him and let Him lead you. Let God guide you with His presence. He wants to do that for you. Can I just say this? You don't have to know all the things that are involved. You don't. We as humans, we like to know everything. Some of us like to know more than others. I like to plan everything out. We're going on a road trip. It drives my wife batty. We go to Michigan every year, and a couple weeks beforehand, I will have it written out. How many miles we can go between gas stops, how many miles I think we can get between meals, how much liquid the little ones need to intake in order to keep them having to stop every 3.5 minutes to go to the restroom. I like to plan it all out. Which hotels? It's weird that in the 15 years we've lived here and made that trip to that 950-mile, 15-hour trip so many times, we know the exits that are coming on 75. You get on 75 in Macon and don't get off until Canada. That's the honest truth when you go see my brother and sister in Michigan. That's the way it works. In fact, one time we missed a turn and ended up on the bridge to Canada. But the fact is, we often like to know every minute detail. What it's going to be like. What my life is going to entail. I like to plan it all out, but when it comes to following the will of God in your life, listen, you don't have to know all of the stuff. Here's what you have to know. This is what God wants me to do. And with His help, I'm going to do it. So you don't have to know the why. You don't have to know the when. You don't even always have to know the where. He says that He'll be a lamp unto your feet. That is right here. Nobody takes a flashlight in the darkness and shines it a mile down the road. You don't do that. You put it right here so that you can see the next step. And that's what God's going to do with His Word for you, Josh and Ashley. He's going to give you direction for the next step. You don't have to know when. God's timing is always right. Even though the children of Israel had spent 40 years in the wilderness, they were learning who He was. You don't have to know where. Just follow each step that He takes you. The fact is, for some of us in God's will, if He was to reveal the whole thing all at once, it scares all to death. It scares all to death. If I had known when I was 15, 16, 17 that there'd be a time when 4 times a week I'd stand up in front of a crowd of people, I'd have said, nope, I got other things I could be doing. Like not standing in front of a bunch of people. And yet if we're careful to take each step and follow each step that He takes, to follow Him as He goes into this river that they're going into, River Jordan, each step is ordered by the Lord. In fact, that's what the book of Psalms says. The good steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and that's what you want. And so you don't have to know the why, the how, and the who. Just trust this, that God knows who you are and that He loves you with everything that He is and has a great plan for you that maybe you can't even imagine right now. So first of all, let God guide you with His presence. Let me give you the second thing we have to do, and we'll hurry along. You have to also let Jesus gladden you with His promises. Let Him gladden you with His promises. Look at verse number 3. He said, commanded the people, the priest. He said, when I start to move, go before you. You're to follow and go your place after it. Verse number 7. And the Lord said unto Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so will I be with thee. You don't think Joshua took that promise, filed it right back here, and pulled that out over and over and over on his life, in his life? You have to first let Him guide you with His presence, but then let Him gladden you with the promises that He's made to you. The promises that we have, that we hold dear, is that He'll never leave us nor forsake us. That's what He says in the New Testament, so that we may boldly say that Lord is my helper and a very present help in trouble. So if we're going to arrive where we're going, to our destination, without a map, we have to first of all let Him guide us with His presence. Secondly, we're going to have to let Him gladden us with His promises, because, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, life's about to get hard. Life's about to get hard. It's amazing. I was looking at somebody the other day, a little kid, and something did not go their way. When I say something in a 3-year-old's life doesn't go their way, that's like they ran out of a pizza before they were ready to run out of pizza, and life has fallen apart. For them, they don't know how they're going to carry on. Have you noticed that with little kids? And now as an adult, I'm going, I would love to get back to the place in my life that I thought life was over if I had one piece of pizza too short of what I wanted. I'd love to get back to that's my biggest problem of the day. I'm short pizza. Because as an adult, it's not short pizza. Sometimes it's short cash for the bills. Sometimes it's life is not going the way I want it to be. Sometimes relationships are difficult. Sometimes I'm just not sure what I'm doing. Sometimes it's just things aren't well for me. And in those moments, as you become adults and you begin to get out on your own and do those things for yourself, come to the place where you rely on the promises that Christ has made you to gladden you in difficulties. Because what you're going to find, if you haven't already, is that there are a lot of times people let you down. People let you down. And if you count on other people to gladden you in the middle of your difficulties, you're going to be depressed most of your life. What we have to do is, first of all, let Him guide us to the place that we're going with His presence, but then also let Him gladden us in difficulties with the promises that He's made. And look, you've got a book in your lap. You were just given a brand new one from the church full of promises. And I can promise you this, promise, that's no pun intended, there's one in there for everything that you're going to encounter. There's one in there for everything you're going to encounter. You're not going to be left on a day wondering, what is it that God says about this, because I haven't found it. It's right there in the Word of God. And so let Him guide you with His presence. Let Him gladden you with His promises. Let me give you one more and we'll be done. I can smell the food and I'm getting hungry. Verses 7 through 11, we find that God will guard you with His power. That God will guard you with His power. And it doesn't take a genius to look at the world around us, especially in the happenings of the last several weeks, and realize this world is not what we want it to be. Somebody said this morning, it sure does make you want Jesus to come back, and it does. And the good news is He's coming. He's coming. But there will be moments in your life where, as you take a step of faith, where you're not sure how this is going to work out, it is the power of Almighty God that's going to guard you and protect you. When I was a kid, I must have been 11 or 12. I can still remember having a conversation with my dad. I don't remember what the whole conversation was about. But he made this statement, and it stuck with me for a long time. I know it wasn't his. He may try to take credit for it, but it wasn't his. But here's what he told me. We were talking about missionaries on the foreign field, and he said, son, the fact is, every person is immortal until God's work is finished in their lives. That's a profound statement, isn't it? That every person is immortal until God has finished His work in their lives and through them. And so when we let God guide us with His presence, and then in difficulty He guides us with His promises, we also come to the place where in difficulty, when we're attacked, when it seems like we're up in a fight that we cannot win, we have to let Him guard us with His power, and He'll do it. I'm reminded of 3 men in the book of Daniel, chapter number 3. You know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You know that story. They came to the place where their faith dictated that they could not do what the civil government was telling them to do under pains and penalty of death. They were given a second chance, if you look at it in Daniel chapter 3, to bow before this 96-foot high golden image that the king had set up, and they wouldn't do it. The king said, look here, if you don't bow down this time, I'm going to cast you in the fire furnace, and here's the statement. Who is that God who will deliver you out of my hand? That's what the king said to him. One of those 3 boys looked at the king, and I love the record of his answer. He said this, we're not careful to answer thee in this matter, O king, if it be so. In other words, if we are going to not bow down and you're going to try to cast us in the furnace, if it be so, our God will deliver us out of your hand and out of the fiery furnace. And they said this, but if not, be it known unto thee that will not bow before the image. You talk about faith. You know what the faith that they had was? It was a promise that God would protect them in doing His will. And they had enough peace in the middle of that miserable situation to know that God could very well deliver them because He has the ability and the power to do that. But if He didn't, He knew what He was doing. We just may not understand it. Y'all know the story. They heat that thing up 7 times hotter than it was supposed to be heated. the men that have Shadrach, Meshach bound, throw them into the furnace. It kills the men that throw them in. And in just a minute or two, and I would love, I don't know if at heaven there'll be like a movie archive, but I want to go watch this particular scene unfold. I'd love to see how it happened, the time frame that all this took place, because in just a few minutes, the king, who is upon a balcony, looks into the fiery furnace and is completely confused by what's taking place. He says, hang on a second. Didn't we cast 3 men tied up into that fire? And yet I see 4 of them, he says, they're walking around. And then the king, who said, there's not a God who'll deliver you out of my hand, almost asked politely if they would come out of that fiery furnace. If I had been one of them, I'm like, you come get us. Come on in here. Let's do this. We're in here now. Come on and get us. It's not what happened. They came out. And what I'm saying, there's example after example after example. You look at Elijah and Elisha in the Old Testament. You look at the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. There are men and women in both Old and New Testament that can attest to the fact that God's power and His presence and His promises will be a help and will protect and will get you where you need to go. And I don't know what God's got for our 2 graduates. We watched them grow up. It's hard to believe they're adults. But I know this. I know their parents. I know Josh's parents very well. I know Ashley's parents pretty well too. I know that the prayer that is being prayed over both of these graduates is that they accept, find, and do the perfect will of God for their lives. That's the plan. That's the prayer. And guys, in order to do that, we're going to have to come to the place where you allow God to guide you with His presence. That you're going to let Him gladden you in difficulty with His promises, not by somebody else, but with His Word. And that when you feel like you're facing a giant that you cannot handle, when your storm is blowing and it looks like your ship is going to crash, let Him guard you with His power. And if you do those 3 things, you'll get where you're going. You'll get to that perfect will of God, and what He can do with you and through you and for you is beyond even wildest imagination. It is. And in 10 years, you're going to look back, if you've done those things, and say, I don't know how He got me here, but He did. And I'm so thankful that He did. Would you bow your heads as the piano player is coming? You may have already graduated high